This episode is brought to you by Reese's Peanut Butter Cups. Some things are just better together, like party playlists and Friday nights, campfires and ghost stories, peanut butter and chocolate. And Reese's Cups are the perfect combination of creamy peanut butter and delicious milk chocolate. So, when you want something sweet, you can't do better than Reese's Peanut Butter Cups. Buy Reese's today wherever candy is sold.
Apple Card is the credit card created by Apple. You earn 3% daily cash back up front when you use it to buy a new iPhone 15, AirPods, or any products at Apple. And you can automatically grow your daily cash at 4.15% annual percentage yield when you open a high-yield savings account. Apply for Apple Card in the Wallet app on iPhone. Apple Card subject to credit approval. Savings is available to Apple Card owners subject to eligibility. Savings accounts by Goldman Sachs Bank USA, member FDIC. Terms apply.
In sports, the scoreboard doesn't tell the full story, but Netflix does. Stories about dads who happen to be world-class quarterbacks and a battle for the heart, soul, and direction of the multi-billion-dollar business of F1. Whether you're a diehard fan or you're brand new, Netflix has the stories for every type of fan. You can watch these incredible sports stories like Quarterback, F1 Drive to Survive, Untold, and many more now on Netflix.
Serie A Chronicles is a Mina and Chronicles production.
I think that they are one of the most beautiful teams to watch because I just think they're capable of playing on the ball, off the ball, counter-attacking. They're tactically unpredictable when they want to be. They are full of speed and energy and bite and youth and vitality and also veteran knowledge. I just want other people to see this. You know what I mean? I just want them to see what Milan's capable of.
Ho visto il grande Milan, ho visto il grande Milan. Hey, mamma, mi innamorato sono. Oh mamma, 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 oh mamma, mamma, mamma. Sai perché mi batte il corazon. Ho visto il grande Milan, ho visto il grande Milan. Hey, mamma.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Serie A Chronicles. I'm Mina Rzouki and as always I'm joined by Nicky Bandini. But before we have our little chit chat, tell you about Serie A, I just want to let you know that this episode is fully free. So we like to do this every now and then just so you get to know how great we are and then hopefully get you on as a member. We also have a 14-day free trial for our Chronicles Tifosi Patreon membership. So head to serieachronicles.com/Patreon now and subscribe to the Chronicles Tifosi membership for free. Hello, Nicky Bandini.
Hi, Mina Rzouki. How are you?
I'm all right. How are you doing? I hear that you're going to Bella Italia for Easter.
I am excited. I fly on Thursday. The rest of my family's all flying out tomorrow. Too much to do to fly at the same day as them. So I'm flying on Thursday and I'm going to be in the small town where my dad's from, which is sort of near. I mean, it's not that near to Bologna and it's like a 40-minute train journey from Bologna, but it's nearish. It's a small town. And so we're doing that for Easter. And then since I'm in Italy already, I'm going to catch a train up to Milan and be there for the Milan-Napoli Champions League quarterfinal. So yeah, going to be a fun trip. I'm really looking forward to it.
How exciting, especially after the match that we watched yesterday.
Right, yeah.
You just, I feel like there's a part of me that's like, can you please just wear armor? Because I'm scared what happens in these matches. But at the end of the day, I think that that's so cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a thing I've thought about, Mina. Like, it's domestic Italian teams playing each other in Europe. It certainly wouldn't be the first time that bad things have happened. I mean, even, gosh, I remember when we were looking at the possibilities for this draw and saying it could be a Milan derby in the Champions League and what a fun throwback that would be. Well, the last time the Milan teams played in the Champions League, a flare was thrown at Dida and a game got abandoned. So like there's certainly not always been great things that happen when Italian teams meet each other in Europe. So
it's weird when I think of as in when I'm doing matches in which sometimes I would be like, no, I'm not doing this game, or I get scared. And I'm also like a whole 153, so I'm very tiny. And I get really scared and things. But San Siro is a place, that I feel let's say sometimes a little bit safer than the others. other than obviously Juventus Stadium I feel safe in. But like Bento Godi, which everyone hates, but I feel really safe in that one too. But then there's others like Diego Maradona that I would have been more hesitant about, let's say, accepting to do stuff there, although that's a great atmosphere. But I'm sure that you're going to be telling us a little bit more about how it was yesterday.
Yeah.
Is it just me or am I getting darker? Like, I feel like my tan is just like getting like more deep.
Just your holiday is still with you, Mina.
I know.
You're still like, your soul is still out there in the sunshine.
I was contemplating the other day whether I should move and just open a kiosk and sell like, like coconuts on the beach and then not have to worry about this.
I'll come with you. It sounds good.
Because I had like this moment of watching like the Australian Grand Prix and I was like, oh, I hate the sport already. Yeah. And then then watching and then reading Gazzetta and their comments on some of the matches that happened on Saturday, which annoyed me even more. And then I realized that there's no game I like. Like I hate all sports now. And I was like, let me just go back to Mauritius and open a kiosk and sell things,
Holiday blues is a thing.
Yeah.
Holiday blues is a thing. When you have a nice holiday and you come back and it's just like, oh, real world isn't a holiday.
Yeah. And then you know what it was? It was having to get back on Twitter because like people are bullying me for not retweeting stuff. And I'm just like, oh.
Twitter was never great, but it's definitely not better since Elon arrived. It was, that's not true. I think it was great. I think it was great when it was like no one really knew how it worked and it was new and everyone was just an idiot on there. That was fun.
Oh, the good old days.
But it's been a long time since it was that, I think. But yeah, it's not got better, has it? Anyway, do you know what else wasn't great, Minnie? Because you were asking me about this and I started, the conversation went somewhere else. What else wasn't great was the atmosphere in Naples, which I think you were just asking about in the stadium. And I think we've got to get to the game because the game was such a crazy game, but worth sort of explaining this a bit because I can imagine some people listening won't know why, like in Naples, where for certain we are at the point of a massive like street party that goes on for weeks is coming. The atmosphere inside the stadium still isn't that great in Naples. And it all comes to the relationship between the Ultras and Aurelio De Laurentiis. Sort of to go through all of it, it would take a long time because the list of grievances is long and has all sorts of sort of individual things that were said woven through it. So the big picture is that there's ultra groups in Naples who have not liked De Laurentiis for a long time, but there was a strike officially for this game, an ultra strike, which means they're not going to chant support the team. And instead you had them sort of openly chanting against Aurelio De Laurentiis in particular, and also there was some andate a lavorare, which is, get to work for the team itself, which you think is bonkers given they're top of the table. And what was it at the start of this weekend? Was it 19 points clear at the top of the table to start the weekend? And how is it not just a completely delighted atmosphere? Because again, in the city of Naples, every day it's like a new mural or a new banner goes up. Like it's just constantly more and more party preparations being made. But the ultras are unhappy about several things. Some of it is the enforcement of the Tessera del Tifoso, which is the fan ID card. That's not new, it's national and they kind of have to do it. So that one's a bit of a weird one, but still ultra groups aren't happy about it. They're not happy about restrictions that have been placed by the club on bringing certain things into the stadium. Flags, banners, flares, instruments, restrictions have been placed on some things that can come in and they're not happy about that. And there's also unhappiness at the pricing of tickets for the Champions League quarterfinal. So there's a whole sort of set of grievances. And again, a lot of ultras who just have never liked De Laurentiis see him as an outsider, see him as someone who just wants to do business with their club rather than to win. And the fact that they're top of the league and going to win their third ever title hasn't cleared that grievance. It's worth saying that. And I always end up saying this. I think from the outside, people often see ultras and just think, well, that's just like a fan who's really, really hardcore. And so what they're thinking, everyone thinks. It's not true at all. Ultra groups and tifosi, the regular fans, often have very different perspectives on things. And when some of these chants started before the game, a lot of the tifosi, the fans on the part of the stadium, were whistling and trying to sort of drown out those chants. So it's a weird atmosphere there. But all of that was in the backdrop to, Mina, this was the weirdest game that I don't think anyone saw coming. Did you see this coming?
No, I was going to start off by saying that I was one of those people that Spaletti was yelling at, because when I saw it picked out that game was picked out in the Champions League draw, I thought Napoli's going to flatten them, you know? And then he did this whole spiel about, you know, nothing about football if you think we're going to, you know, go out there and flatten Milan. And I was like, well, in their current state, you know, they're not exactly this like dazzling team. I mean, we haven't seen this Milan side for a really long time, a really, really long time. And I just think that it was so left-wing. I did not expect it at all. There was lots of chat about Osimhen, and then lots of people saying, well, you know, just to let you know that they've got a 100% record without Osimhen. They've got great players on the bench that can represent the great striker, and obviously Raspadori, Giovanni Simeone, who started the match. They're not dependent on any player. There's still Kvaratskhelia, Lobotka, and, you know, all of it. But Milan, as soon as I saw the way that he looked to want to approach this game, purely in the sense that he played the 4-man back line, he reverted to the 4-2-3-1 and put Benacer in that trequartista role. I'm not going to lie, a piece of me, like, my heart fluttered. Because, like, all I've ever wanted was 3 bodies in midfield. You know, like, I've just really, really wanted this, okay? Like, 3 bodies that are good on the ball and off the ball. Like, you know, just it makes a difference, you know? And he put Brahim Diaz on the right, and I thought, I didn't know how that was going to go, in all honesty. You know, Leao, obviously, and Giroud. It was just a tactical masterpiece. Like, it was just, on Saturday, there was a game between Manchester City and Liverpool, and everyone just went crazy when Grealish tracked back and did some defensive work, right? And that's what we all love to see. We love to see a forward who goes back and tracks back and helps the team. And when Rafael Leao did it, it was like, chapeau, well done. Like, it was a real reminder of just who won the league last year and just how good they can be when they put the effort in.
Yeah, I think it was just like, for a lot of us, it was like we'd gone back in time somehow. I think this season, not that they've been awful, because they were still at the start of the weekend. They were 4th. By the time the game kicked off, they were down to like 5th or 6th, because obviously other teams had played. But Milan had just really rarely looked like last season's Milan. And last season's Milan were young. They were so direct, just like coming at you in arrows and willing to sort of take on their man and beat you that way. And Brahim Diaz has had some good days before, but Brahim Diaz was untouchable in that first half. It was just like wherever he wanted to go, he was going. And the first goal, when he sets up Leao, he's just sort of absolutely sort of makes a fool of 2 people by the sideline and puts that ball through. And
uno contro 2, va via la grande Brahim Diaz, super giocata, palla dentro verso Leao per l'1-0 Milan, 16 minuti, Leao ritrova il gol dopo una giocata strepitosa di Brahim Diaz.
La giocata di Brahim Diaz è sontuosa, Pier.
You know, even on the goal he scores, I almost wonder if he had to do it, but he does it anyway, that dummy to sell Mario Rui, and it's just like a classic, like, you know, it's that classic moment where you see it's not just that he's scored, it's not just that he's wrong-footed Mario Rui, but it feels like Mario Rui is having to throw like all of his energy, all of his effort into trying to do something. And then Brahim Diaz is just like, they're doing it. I'm like, yeah, this is really easy. Like, you're putting all that in. I'm just going to calmly go, yeah, make you look stupid. It was unbelievable. The confidence, the swagger, the way they went forward, just absolutely stunning. And at the same time, still really puzzling, because like, it's one thing to go there and win, but they won 4-0. It's not just that they beat Napoli, who conceded 16 goals all season, who had scored, what was it, like 64 goals in 27 Serie A games, scored on the 25 and 8 Champions League games. This team that averages like a 3-0 win suddenly like is getting hammered. It was bizarre. I think the tactical part of it, as you've said, was brilliant. Pioli said, look, you know, I knew we were going to do this for a little while. It wasn't like something I decided on the day, because the way that Napoli line up, I didn't feel like we could stack up against that with a 3-man defense. And interestingly, last year, they also won away at the Maradona. And that was because they, with Frank Kessié, wasn't the same formation, but they were similar in their approach. Exactly. They did this really sort of high aggressive press, get on top of the build-up play early. So it's an idea that's worked before. But I still think it's crazy, because It's a weird thing. I don't know how you think about this, Mina, because part of me is like, God has purely just got Spalletti's number. But then you remember they have lost to them at San Siro twice in the last 2 years. So there's just this weird dynamic going on where they both go away and win each other's stadiums.
Yeah, you wonder what pressure does sometimes to these teams when they're playing at home, maybe against each other, or whether there's a determination to prove something. I have no idea what it is, but I came out on Twitter and I was saying that I want to put this in context for you. In the 18 matches Milan have played away from home this season, in all competition, they've won only 6. In Serie A, they've conceded 19 goals away from home. And that's over 1 goal a game. And only scored 16 goals in 14 games. 16 goals in 14 games and 4 against Napoli. Like, this is, like, to just explain, just like, this is like a masterpiece. And it was really interesting also because on Twitter there was like a great Premier League who said, I think Napoli will still be okay for the title. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, like don't worry.
They'd have to go some to not be. I mean, even if Juventus get their points penalty overturned, it's still a 12-point lead. They'd have to go some to not win the title.
Yeah,
now.
I mean, there needs to be a proper capitulation for this to. And I do feel like sometimes Napoli gets a little bit more of this kind of disrespect where no one would have said that if it was Juventus who was in lead by that. You know?
Yeah.
So I that kind of annoys me a little bit as well. But I'm sick of having to respond to people about the quality of Serie A, the quality of certain Italian teams. But when it came to Milan, there's a part of me that was a little bit angry because it's like, where has this been? But then there's another part of me that reminds myself that this is a team that really has been missing some of their best players, that have been overworked, that don't have a full squad. But when they do have a squad, like a near full squad at their disposal, and when they do have Mike Maignan at the back and can comfortably play a 4-man back line and not have to sort of sit back and play deeper, which compromises them in the attack when they play with 3 men in front of Tatarusanu like they did. What they did there was to try to sort of defend themselves because they weren't able to do it. And especially with Tatarusanu's inability to really play with the ball and to, again, contribute something to the attack. So it just dropped everything deeper. But having Mike Maignan back allows them to play that 4-man back line. And what was excellent was having Krunic sort of shut down everything. It's this thing where Carlo Ancelotti was talking about some of the tactics that he deploys in Champions League. Like Camavinga, they play him sometimes in the left back role, or at least that's what Deschamps wants to do in the national team. And he's like, well, I don't want to play him there. I want to shut down that lane so that I feel secure. And that's exactly what Krunic does. When you shut down something, you allow the others to sort of elaborate and have the game of their lives like Tonali did. It was just this ability to just feel like there's someone who's helping you out. There's someone who's helping you out. And so we can then get the most out of our attacking abilities because, we know where we have the space. And it's just this team that sacrificed for one another. It was tactically perfect, tactically absolutely perfect. I thought Benacer was great. I mean, obviously, Brahim Diaz stole the show. Leao, started scoring for the first time since January the 14th. Is it just me, by the way, or did you spot that he just looks a lot fitter? Like just a lot more lean than I feel like I've seen him recently, or is it because
Leao?
Yeah, or is it because I haven't really seen him topless in a while? So I don't know. Yesterday I was like,
things to keep track of.
Yeah, things to keep track of. But yesterday I just thought that he looked like in much better shape, and I didn't know whether that was just because maybe I haven't really concentrated on his shape before, but it kind of irritates me because you're like, you're capable of this, you're capable of winning the Ballon d'Or, you're capable of these moments that just light up the world when you play. Like, I just want to see it all the time, and I hate that we can't. I hate that.
Hey gang, just wanted to let you know that you can now get a free 14-day trial of our Chronicles Tifosi Patreon membership.
Subscribe now for free for 14 days to get access to all of our full episodes, solo minisodes, bonus content, even behind the scene bonuses like our chats about football, and of course our chats about life in general. You can also get the entire back catalogue of Serie A Chronicles content.
So head over to serieachronicles.com/Patreon and subscribe to the Chronicles Tifosi membership for free. He's a real conundrum. And I think just like to pick up on what you were saying about the records teams, I was thinking as a team, like, because it's easy to say like all the numbers and like get lost in them. But like just remembering where Milan were before the international break, they literally got beaten 3-1 by Udinese. Like they lost to Udinese, who are in the middle of the table and have been going nowhere. Like it was just like, that was the last result they had before this one.
Got spanked by Bologna.
But I was thinking, with sort of Leao individually, where we're coming from is no question that he's a great player. We've talked about it loads of times about how good of a player we think he is. But the fact is he hadn't scored in, I think, 11 games for Milan. Now, he did score for Portugal in his last international game, and I'm certain that probably helps because that like gets him a little bit of something back. It was really interesting as well to hear him talk about on CBS afterwards. He did an interview with CBS on TV, and he said, and they asked him about the change formation. He goes, I do like it better. I like it better when I'm on the left, and I feel like I have, the way he said it, I think he said like, when I'm in the middle, I feel like when I turn, I don't have that space. Whereas when I'm on the left, I find that space more easily. And I can see that as a player with his attributes, with pace being without question, like one of the things that's a strength of his, having the space for that first step maybe feels really important to him. There's also, I'm sure, just like comfort level of it. Like if it's where he's played most, then it's about just sort of feeling at home, knowing what's what. I still don't think he can explain everything because it was just such a sharp performance, but it clearly does help him.
Just on his position, I did see him go centrally quite a lot, and Benacer sort of moving sometimes to the left to cross, like for the second goal. So I did think that like Brahim Diaz stayed more towards his position, but I did think Leao like sort of went into the central areas a lot more than usually, I would imagine from him. But
I think it's not like he doesn't want to come inside, but I guess just when you're playing with the back three, you've got the wing backs outside you. And in this formation, he doesn't really have that sort of pressure outside him. I mean, you've still got Teos, he's still coming forward. But it doesn't, it just sort of gives him a different shape of space that he can work in, I guess. Sorry, go.
No, I was going to say like, it's amazing how like they just couldn't in the slightest bit defend against him. Whereas Kvara was so well caged by, the likes of Krunic and my boy Calabria back to his best, like.
But it was a great game for everyone. Like that's the thing. Like Brahim and Leao stand out because they scored and they set up and they were brilliant. I mean, Salamakas off the bench as well. But actually, you've already mentioned Tonali. Tonali had a brilliant game. Calabria had a great game. I just don't think there's anyone for Milan who didn't have a good game. Probably like if I was going to pick out the worst, it might be, I don't know, Giroud, but he didn't have a bad game. He had a pretty useful game linking up. It's just that they were all brilliant.
Yeah. Well, even Krunic, like I honestly think that everyone had and did their job perfectly. But you know what it is, and what's really frustrating is that again, I spent so much of my time defending Serie A, but I was doing a show on Saturday and they were talking about like how terrible of a league it is. And, like what's Milan? Come on, like they were holding on against Spurs. Yeah. And I was trying to explain that Milan are really good.
They beat Spurs.
They
knocked out Spurs.
I know, but they were referring to Spurs as such a hideous team, basically. And yet Milan was still hanging on, And I was like...
So what, fourth in the Premier League?
Yeah, this is what I mean. They just love to bully Serie A. I mean, the guy actually said Fulham would make it to the top 4 places if they were in Serie A. And I was like, all right, okay. But the thing is that it's kind of hard because I guess in some appearances recently with Milan in even against Spurs, and even though they won that, it's not the real Milan. Like, I want them to see this Milan. Like, this is the real Milan. This is the Milan that we know that they're capable of doing. And it irritates me in many senses because I feel sorry for them that they don't have the squad depth to maintain that, because it is really hard to sort of play in different competitions with the squad that they have, because they don't really have backups to these type of players. You sort of need Krunic and Tonali and Benacer to be in the middle. You need Brahim Diaz to play like this sometimes against the small teams and not always against the big teams, because he is a big team player. But you sort of need some alternatives. Like, how amazing it would have been if, unfortunately for them, it's not working out for the Catalari at the moment. There isn't really much other squad players that they can bring in. So when they are capable of playing at the highest energy levels and they feel rested and can really go for it, I think that they are one of the most beautiful teams to watch, because I just think they're capable of playing on the ball, off the ball, counter-attacking. They're tactically unpredictable when they want to be. They are full of speed and energy and bite and youth and vitality and also veteran knowledge, sometimes contributed by the likes of Giroud or Captain Kayer at the back. I always call him that. I feel like I need to change his name.
Captain Kayer.
Yeah. I kind of just want other people to see this. You know what I mean? I just want them to see what Milan's capable of. And on so many levels, I want money spent on the squad because this is what we should be seeing. This is what we know Pioli can create with this team. I want alternatives to I don't know, Benacer, or just another midfielder that they can go to should one of these guys be out that's worth it. And I know Pobega's on, there are others, but Milan could be so good. We would have had such a thrilling race, for the title. But it's just one of those where it's like you want to kick yourself that they haven't been that. And I haven't seen that all season. I know that they were all right in the beginning of it, but I was complaining a long back that they were missing the likes of Kessie. This is the first, honestly, for me, this was the first match that I looked in there and thought they don't need anything. They're perfect. They're perfect. And maybe that is because of Napoli. Let's talk a little about Napoli.
Yeah, I think they need depth, Milan. They need depth. That's without question the biggest issue. I think the starting 11 can be good. But yes, Napoli are worth talking about.
Yes. I mean, Saki was saying that this isn't about them. I thought it was a very interesting piece that Saki wrote, and he said it's not about Osimhen missing. I mean, at the end of the day, this was just a very lax performance from them. They didn't really look like they generated much passion or motivation or played with the kind of intensity that obviously Milan did. Do you think Osimhen would have changed that?
I think Osimhen would have changed something. Sort of worth pointing this out because I feel like you might look at this result and think it was something crazy. This was essentially more or less their strongest 11 minus Osimhen. Mm-hmm. So it was just one player out. It wasn't like a rotated team. It was, you could quibble one or two positions, right? But it's pretty much what I think their strongest 11 is. Do I think that having a centre forward makes a difference between 4-0 and winning? No, I don't. I think you still lose. Would it help to have Osimhen there because he's very different in his, not just his goal scoring, but his style to Simeone? So he gives you an outball. He gives you the sort of target man because he's big and he's physical in a way that Simeone isn't. Yeah, it changes something. It does. And he also might score because he's Osimhen and he always scores. But I don't think you can point to that and say, well, that's why we lose 4-0. If you lose 1-0, maybe you can say that, but you can't say it when you lose 4-0. The theories on why this happened, Saki's version is one version. Fabio Caressa on Sky Sport in Italy was saying afterwards that basically he was like, what if they're just hustlers in the pool room and they just were deliberately giving this one away so that Milan will relax and they can beat them next time? And I'm just not that conspiratorial. I love that Italy is always like this and, has to have the most conspiratorial take put front and center. But no, I don't think Luciano Spalletti said to his players, let's just lose. I think that's not how that works. I do think that Napoli have shown, in amongst all the good, a tiny bit of vulnerability recently. They did also lose at home to Lazio. It wasn't 4-0, but they lost. And perhaps I think that after however many months we're into the season, I think more teams are doing a better job of, for instance, caging Kvaratskhelia. I think that Pioli definitely is not the first coach to notice that if you can get on top of Lobotka, who you talked about a lot on this podcast, Mina, quietly a key to that team working right. If you can get on top of Lobotka, then other things stop working as well. So I think that there are maybe some like little cracks in the armour that are being worked on by opposition coaches. And I also don't think that means that they're going to necessarily lose the Champions League tie. I think they can be a lot better than this. And I think it's definitely true that, I'm not in this case a conspiracist. I don't think that they deliberately threw it, but I do think that the level of tension in this Napoli team is dropping because the league is won. And I think when it comes to Champions League night, there will be a different attitude. Now, whether or not you can just switch that on is the question. If you get too lax for too long, can you go back to being at full power? And I think that's a question that we ask. I mean, we've asked this for years, haven't we? We asked this about Bayern Munich for a long time. I think they eventually proved it was silly, but it was asked about PSG all the time. If you're not getting enough competition at home, does it hurt you in Europe? And even though they're playing a team from their home country, the same logic applies. If you're not getting hard enough games every week, do you eventually lose some of your edge and get worse? And that is a question that I think if I was a Napoli supporter, it would scare me a little bit. I think it would scare me a little bit.
I know, guys, we've been talking about this game for a lot, but I still have so much to say. So just hold on with us for a little bit. It is like a huge game. But it is one thing that I do feel like it was you actually who mentioned it, because when they had that brilliant performance against Juventus in the 5-1, you said there were a lot of defensive mistakes and obviously Juventus are a good team, but a really great team who are on it and on the, like, can really take advantage of those and take advantage of the spaces that they create at the back. Another thing what's interesting about Napoli is they do really work hard, right? But they're a team that is a little bit, to me, not too dissimilar to Manchester City. They are tactically perfect. They've got players that are just full of technical quality. But I do think sometimes that if you come at them with this aggression and bite, they're a kind of team that still has that part of them that's a little bit like, okay, chill out, like, and they back off. Like, what I would have wanted to see is a little bit, is anger, in all honesty. Is somebody like, I don't know, shoving Salmakers, who dribbled past 15 players and made himself look like he was Diego Maradona, you know? Salmakers, who is a lot of the time the guy that's considered the one who does all the sort of the dirty work, you know, that launches everyone else. And instead he is the one that's scoring that kind of goal. And usually one thing that I would say that Osimhen does is more than what his ability is on the ball and what he can do in scoring goals. He is a mental leader and that kind of guy who just sort of brings everyone on and raises the level of excitement and sort of eggs them on. And Anguissa, for me, wasn't really there either. And I feel like maybe that is the traveling. It is that they've just come back from places like Cameroon or South Korea or whatever it is. And it just seemed like they didn't show their teeth. And I want to make sure that doesn't happen, because this was a performance that was about winning duels. And Milan does that really, really well. When a lot's on the line, they know how to win their duels and really cause that kind of level of chaos. And I want to make sure that they will be able to do that, or at least compete, not necessarily win, but compete in the Champions League when it comes to that. Obviously, a lot's riding on that. But yes, it does worry me with Lobotka, because it's kind of like what people used to do, well, still do to Inter, which is just put a man on Brozovic and you can see them really stutter when it comes to going forward. And if that's the way to do it, then there's got to be another option. And usually they adjust quite well, whether it's Lozano or Politano on one side, and they find a way of freeing themselves. But on this occasion, when Milan is in this mood, is it an off day, or is there some chinks to this armor? Which again, it doesn't matter in Serie A, but it matters for the Champions League, because, you know, I need an Italian to win it.
Yeah, I'm curious, Mina, like, because I still expect Napoli to win. On balance, I expect Napoli to win
the Champions League matchup, to
win the tie. Don't know the whole thing yet. Yeah. The tie, and I do think that Osimhen changes the shape of the game, because again, like, if you shut down Lobotka and Napoli just say, all right, we'll bypass Lobotka and send it straight to Osimhen, it's a different challenge to deal with. But I do think, actually, you've been saying this for a little while as well, that, you know, that maybe there is some thing about if you can be the one to hit them first. And there's that little Mike Tyson thing in the back of my head. Everyone's got a plan until they're punched in the face. This Napoli team hasn't been punched in the face very much.
Yeah.
So that's what Milan did to them this weekend. And now everyone's like, all right, actually, you can do it.
Yeah.
We'll see where it goes.
I wonder if there would be something in putting like a Raspadori just to help with just some of the work that Lobotka does, because I thought he was splendid when he came on. Obviously, it was already a team that had fallen at this point, but they do need to find alternatives if teams figure out how to defend against them and they don't show their teeth. But other than that, bravo to Milan. We should move on, because it's been like an hour on this game.
That was the biggest game of the week, for sure.
Yeah, probably of the season, really, at this point.
It's definitely one of the biggest games of the season. I said it was biggest season. I thought maybe that's going too far, but it was certainly one of the most shocking results of the season. Probably the most shocking result of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, the life of a journalist, Nicky had it planned that she was going to write about Inter Fiorentina. Because it's a great matchup, right? It's a great story. And then obviously, like, this result comes along and you're just thinking, yeah, right, we're going to have to change course here.
Yeah, well, because I write my column on Monday for The Guardian every week. And yeah, by the end of Saturday, I was like pretty clear which way that was going to be, because I thought, crikey, Inter really are on their way out of the Champions League if it keeps going like this. And Fiorentina obviously are having this incredible run at the moment. They're really doing everything they can to get into the competition for at least the Europa Conference League. I think the Europa League still is going to be tough, just because there are 6 teams and a lot of points up there, but they're really making a go at it. And then this result, and there's so many sort of parts to it.
So obviously it was Saturday afternoon and Inter lost 1-0 to Fiorentina. This was a game in which, third defeat in a row for them, 10th defeat of the season. Last time we've seen this was when the year that they had 3 coaches, which 2016 to 17, and they finished 7th then. This was Fiorentina's 8th victory in a row in all competitions. Also, what's important to note is that it's been 3 games in which Inter hasn't scored a goal. And the game before that in which they did, it was a penalty against Spezia.
They've lost 10 games, Mina.
Yeah.
They've lost 10 games. Inter have lost. It's not anybody.
Right?
It's a team that, at least at the beginning of the season, we thought were a title contender. And they've lost 10 games.
I don't know how that's happening. Okay, so whose fault is it? You've got Lukaku missing open chances, right? Whose fault is it?
There's 2 conversations going on here. One is Inter losing to Fiorentina. This game was actually a really entertaining game, but I don't think you can apply this game as on its own a greater logic, because I think this is a game where Inter could have scored and they could have won.
Exactly.
Fiorentina could also have scored more than once, but Inter definitely made chances and could have won this game. And Lukaku misses shortly before Bonaventura scores for Fiorentina. Lukaku misses one of the worst misses of the season. And I have some sympathy for Lukaku, only in as much as I do think, through sort of all my time watching football, I do think that the biggest sin for a centre forward is not to be in the positions to get those chances. And I think that sometimes people don't get as much criticism because they don't get those chances in the first place. Whereas the ones who get those chances and miss them get more criticism. I think that's not always fair.
Yeah.
But Lukaku is not as sharp as he has been in previous seasons. That's just true. And I think that, But is it his fault or is it the tactics? See, when we talk about fault for the big picture, to me, it's higher up than that. And it's just generally a recruitment strategy that feels like maybe it's the worst excesses of the end of, I suppose, without the sort of sideshow circus of a Cristiano Ronaldo moment, but the excesses of the end of Juventus' successful era, where you're just, your whole strategy seems to be based around clinging on to talents that are fading and just signing only players that might look on the surface like there's opportunities like Lukaku because they can get it on a free transfer, rather than actually planning your team. And there's just so many players in this team, and I just feel like it looks more and more sort of striking week to week how much this team feels like it is all a group at the end of a story, not the beginning of a story, except for Barella, who was practically in tears at the end of the game. He hit the post and was a whirlwind, as he always is. And I feel I don't know, it just all feels so old and sort of like you're trying to cling on to some past glory that wasn't even a very long-lived glory. So I sort of feel for me, that's where the blame goes, is the board. And of course, some of that is, the board don't have any money, so what are they supposed to do? But that is where it's still, the buck stops, is if you can't do it, get out of the way and find someone who can.
What I guess I wanted to really get at is how much of this is on Inzaghi.
Yeah.
Would you say a lot of it, or none of it, or some of it, or give me a percentage?
The percentages are hard because I think it's at least 50%.
Okay.
The top end of the club not being run right, more than. But I think that Inzaghi is cutting an increasingly defeated figure. And I think even at the end of this game, when he was talking afterwards, he didn't sound like he had fight left in him. He sounded like, he was sort of acknowledging that this just wasn't great. And that sort of felt worrying. It's I don't know that I believe that you have the answers here. And we've talked about it all season. He keeps finding good answers in big moments, in important games. They are still, Inter's season could still, in theory at least, Mina, finish with them winning the Champions League and the Coppa Italia, right? They could win 2 cups this season. And if they won the Champions League, it would be huge. But I don't think it's the most likely outcome. I just don't know that he has. Contrast him with Stefano Pioli, who has just gone to Napoli and reinvented the team, going back to an old formula, but still doing it. And who, when things were going badly in the beginning of this year, abandoned all of those ideals, went to a completely different system and steadied the ship. He's not doing a perfect job, but Pioli keeps adapting. Have we seen any adaptation from Inzaghi tactically? Have we seen any any real like attempt to change the narrative with his team. I think, again, it's not his fault that his squad isn't great. It's not his fault that some of these players are at the end of where they could be. But it's now, well, you've just said all the numbers, I don't need to repeat them. They're on a really bad run and they need to change something, and they're not changing anything.
You know, it's interesting that, because now if you ask me about the squad, I'll also agree with you and I say it's not really a great squad. But yet, I'm fairly certain that when we did our Sky show, we both said that it's probably the best squad. So is it?
It's just not young and hungry. It's not got.
Is that what you think? It's a psychological thing.
Yeah.
So it's a psychological thing.
I think so.
Because they do well in the Champions League, right? In the matches that matter against Barcelona, we see them step up. Against Napoli, we see them step up. But then it's a lot of losses to small teams, right? And obviously, yes, we understand that this is sort of Fiorentina and also a loss to Juventus, although for that, Rabiot's playing basketball for the last 2 games. So we also understand that there's some controversy there. But you see, I have this debate with myself the whole time where I can't figure it out. But it is also a little of like, maybe change it up, you know. And I do think that he found his modules a lot and it helped a lot that he had Perisic up front. And so there was just so much movement or at least just a more unpredictable attack. Whereas now it's very heavily loaded on these 2 strikers, whoever they be, whether it be the Correa and Lukaku this time around, or Lautaro Martinez and Lukaku, or, you know, Dzeko. And I feel like he needs these 2 to be super efficient because the whole team sort of is dependent on that. Whereas once upon a time, like the opening game of the season against Lecce, what I thought was so interesting about that match was how tactically they were so innovative and they stretched the team out wide and had lots of stretched the opponent, and then just had all these midfield runners, and you just didn't know who was attacking because of Di Marco's position. And I thought that was so exciting. I was like, oh, look at Inzaghi, like, you know, reinventing this interside. But now they just look this team like they create and they counter, and there are opportunities. But again, is it harsh for me to blame him because opportunities aren't being created? And yet we're missing open goals here. I mean, there was a game in which they had like 27 shots on goal and couldn't get the win. So you sit there and wonder, like, because like this team isn't playing worse than Juventus. Do you know what I mean? And then Juventus keep winning, right? And so is it that psychological thing? Is it that desire to want to do it at all costs, whatever happens, and, you know, like defend with your heart? I think the fact is that defensively they're not so strong, so they need more than that 1 or 2 chances up front. You know what I mean?
I think that's definitely true. I always come back to with Inter, when you just go to the cold hard numbers, they've scored enough goals, they've conceded too many. Yeah. But you're right that there's certain situations watching them where you just feel like they get very frantic very easily. And that is fair to put on the manager and say, why is this team's temperament not quite right in those moments? There is sort of some sort of stories within the story, like Correa. I feel like, look, you've got him in the squad and you can't not use him. But at the same time, I feel like that's a player who is specifically someone Inzaghi wanted, who has almost never looked good in this Inter side. Almost, it's been a couple of games where it's sort of just happened out of nowhere, but he's almost never looked good in that team. And perhaps it's too dismissive of me to say what I said before about players being sort of older and unmotivated, because actually maybe some of these players could still be lifted up to that motivation level. It's just how it feels. Yeah. It just feels very stale. It feels very like there's not enough energy in the team. There's not enough. And perhaps that is, again, where you ask the manager, if you tried a new formation, maybe it wouldn't be the formation that fixes everything, but the fact that you're telling your players we're trying to find answers sends a message in itself, because there's this air of inevitability about Inter, and it just feels like in these sort of games where they just need a goal, it won't happen. And that's something that I don't know. It's almost intangible, but it feels hard to shake at the moment.
Yeah, and I feel like this has been the way actually with Inzaghi. Even last season, you know, when we look at the stats, they created so much, but never really were efficient in converting them. It's probably worth noting that their goal average from August to December was 2.3 goals, and that's since fallen to 1 since January. So there is something definitely going wrong attacking wise. And I do feel like they are just a lot more of a predictable team than they were before. I think I want to start a little sort of what do you call it, segment in the show in which I just like lose my mind on Gazzetta dello Sport.
I would love a Mina against Gazzetta segment. I feel like often before we start this show, I get Mina's unfiltered, I read this column and it's really annoyed me. And I think that the listeners would enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, I can honestly, I felt like, and they really, like, I shouldn't read them before I go to bed also, because then I just start thinking about them all night. Like, I'm just like, and I just think it's so mean. Like, why would you? And I just don't know why. And then half the time I'm just like placating myself and I'm like, no, but maybe he means it this way, you know? And I just, okay, but this is just one of the comments. I don't know whether, like, yeah, I'm sorry. There's just a lot in Gazzetta that has irritated me. And so there's one writer, which I almost don't want to mention his name because I don't want to look like I'm just attacking him. But he blamed Inzaghi, and he says this in full, okay, for this whole thing. And he said one of the things that he was mentioning as to why he blames him is Inzaghi did not give into the opportunities. The disappointing Di Cattelare, just to name a name, played twice as much for Milan as Bellanova and Aslani combined. And I was like, yeah, he's their star signings. Do you know what I mean? Like, the guy just arrived for like over 30 million. He's going to be put onto the pitch to see what he can do. Like, you basically saying to them, oh my God, you need to play Bellanova and Aslani at every opportunity is not really a way of coming for them. You know, it's a difference where you say, hey, maybe change it up, but going for him there, no. Then there's just been this relentless going to town about the fact that this team doesn't create opportunities. This would have never happened in the sense that they didn't get a goal under Antonio Conte, failing to mention at the time that what they have is Dumfries rather than Achraf Hakimi. And with all due respect, that Dumfries, you know, let's be honest with the guy is doing a great job as somebody who arrived from PSV, but he is not somebody who grew up in the Real Madrid Castilla and is of the might of Achraf Hakimi. So let's pipe it down. Nor is this a team that has, you know, a great Brozovic side who's a little bit older, who has lost the Lukaku and Lautaro Martinez flair, who had alternatives in the sense of Perisic, who had I just kind of like Eriksen that could do something going forward in the middle, who like there's just not enough of recognition of the fact that this team isn't spending money at the end of the day. This isn't a management that helps. This isn't a scouting team. And then they were like, oh yeah, but you know, he's the guy that said no to Dybala. Yes, I know, but hindsight is 2020. Dybala's doing a great job. Okay, I don't want to take that away from him, but this is a guy that spent many years at Juventus being injury prone, and he wanted 10 million. It's a lot for Inter's wages, and for him to have accepted that meant that he would have had to cut from somewhere else in the team because, you know, he was being tasked with the fact that someone had to be sold. And he is begging them to keep as many as possible. So saying, oh, well, you know, you should have accepted. I don't know if Dybala would have changed all that much, to be very honest with you, you know? At the end of the day, like, I just feel like there's just this constant thing where it's always attacking just Inzaghi. And I want to say this, I don't think Inzaghi is the best coach in Serie A. And I do think that, and I completely understand if they do want to move him on, even though, but I just feel like at the end of the day that it's very hard to pin this all on him when, again, his team created many opportunities. And it's really, I feel sorry for him that right now Lautaro Martinez is a streaky player. Lukaku just doesn't seem to have his boots. And Dzeko is 1,000 years old and can't always be the guy that comes on and changes things around. But I don't think Bellanova is the guy that's going to change it all, is my point. Or Dybala if they bought him.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you're saying in recruitment is like kind of better articulated than what I was thinking before. Like, Dumfries is not Hakimi. Acerbi, I've liked him as a footballer, but he's 35 years old and he's not Milan Skriniar, right? He's not. And 2023 Lukaku is not 2021 Lukaku. No. So like every step, when you look at this team, is like a step backwards. Every change is a step backwards. Right. Even Mkhitaryan, who's had some good moments, should have scored in this game. But I mean, Mkhitaryan, he hasn't been a sort of player who you think of as like a top name in a long time. So
it's a step backwards.
Yeah, everything's a little step backwards. And also it feels like the thing I was saying before, everything's like a little step older. These aren't young players almost. Well, some of them are not old, but Mkhitaryan is old. Acerbi's old. Lukaku feels older than he is, but he is still in his 20s. It all just feels like small steps in a not better direction, and it's adding up, I think, for Inter, unfortunately. But Fiorentina continue to be impressive, continue to be on this amazing run. I'm sure Jack Bonaventura really enjoyed scoring against Inter at San Siro as well.
Biraghi a rientrare con il sinistro, Cabral prolunga le mani di Onana, appoggia in rete Bonaventura, va avanti la Fiorentina al 53esimo minuto, il timbro di Jack Bonaventura, il suo primo gol del 2023, 0-1 a San Siro.
Yeah, I can imagine that. And shout out to Luca Ranieri, who, I don't know, well, he did get injured, but people say he feigned that injury to allow Sofiane Amrabat to break his fast. So how lovely if he did do that. Fiorentina, 8th victory in a row in all competitions. Gosh, they can. Do you imagine they can continue this streak?
Could you explain the breaking fast thing, Mina? Because not everyone understands what that's about.
Oh, it's Ramadan. So a lot of players are obviously fasting in these matches. And that's why Amrabat didn't actually start this match because, well, I don't know. I think that at the time, Vincenzo Italiano was like, I'll just save him for the moment. But then the time, so basically at sunset is when you can break your fast. And the time clicked. That he realized he could just have a drink of water because obviously you can't drink water or eat the whole day. Luca Ranieri, his teammate at the time, apparently realized that it was his time and because they were gesturing from the sidelines. So he feigned injury to give him that split moment where he ran to the sidelines, grabbed a banana and a quick drink of water, just so that he could get his energy up for the final push of the game. So I thought that was really sweet.
It's so cool. I can't imagine being a top-level footballer and not getting to eat all day. That sounds unbelievably hard.
Yeah, wasn't it? Do you remember that time ages ago? I don't know who it was. Was it Montari with Jose Mourinho? And he said to him, you need to break your fast. And Montari was like, no. I just don't know whether it was him, but Mohamed Salah was...
It was. No, definitely it was.
It was, right?
It was Mourinho.
Mohamed Salah is fasting. Actually, there's a player right now who's been excluded from a team. I read this. I don't know which team it was. I think in France. Oh yeah, Nantes defender dropped for Ligue 1 match over refusal to break Ramadan fast. So there's some people that are really supportive, like Fiorentina teams, and there's others that are less supportive of your decision to fast. But hey, Morocco was fasting and they beat Brazil, so things can happen. But yeah, all in all, I'm really sorry to have ranted. I'm not trying to tell you that Inzaghi is the best coach in the world or that this is all on management. It's not on anyone. I'm just saying that there's a lot of blame to go around and I just don't want it to all go on one direction. That's it. Next match. Inter, poor Inter, now have to face Juventus. But it is a cup competition, right? And Inzaghi, we know, handles those very well. Which way do you see this going? Because Gazzetta had a little bit of a go at Juventus as well. I don't know whether to go into another column about how much I got angry.
I'm just catching the clock and realizing how long we've been going. So they probably don't want to do a big Juve Verona bit, do we? But they won. They beat Verona. Moise Kean scored. It was a proper cortomuso win, to call it the Allegri way.
Destro-sinistro per Danilo. Miretti di prima. Locatelli sulla corsa di Ken. Moise Ken come all'andata. È lui che sblocca la partita. 1-0 Juventus. L'avevamo detto di mettere questi
winning by a short head. And it's so tough to call because it's Inter and because it's a cup. Nothing impresses me about Juventus, but if you're asking me which of these teams I feel I would more confidently think would win a game of football right now, it's Juventus and it's not close. So I'll expect it's Juventus that go through, but 2 legs, of course. So this is only the first leg. But my confidence is reduced by the fact that Inzaghi keeps saving his best for the cup games.
Yeah, I still think that this should be an Inter victory, but obviously there was even more. I mean, this clearly wasn't Juventus' best game, and you could tell this was a team that was without a lot of their players. But while I will go against what Fabio Licari will say on Gazzetta, which is how rubbish this team is and what do they want and how are they going to build from here, this is still a team that is second in terms of points. And I do think sometimes they are in need of a compliment, and that compliment is the fact that they were playing Locatelli, Miretti and Fagioli in midfield at one point, and otherwise it was Berenguer, and it's just nice for them to involve so many youngsters. Even better when it's Italians, right? So it's nice to see that, but don't be expecting them to perform the way that they did when they used to have Pirlo, Vidal, Marchisio and Pogba. Sometimes you just have to accept that teams are not at the level of they were, and that there are problems at Juventus and they're doing the best they can, but the football is atrocious. Roma, I'm sure Simon's delighted after that derby against Lazio, managed well, with a lot of absences on the pitch, managed a nice 3-0 comfortable victory over Sampdoria. I feel for Sampdoria.
Yeah, I mean, this was a weird game because, it was 0-0 as long as Samp were on 10 men, were on 11 men, and they had Jason Moreno sent off, and everything sort of fell apart for them. I think Roma were going to win this game anyway. You can't say it for sure because they hadn't scored, and goals change games, obviously.
But they had so many absences.
Yeah, but Sampdoria aren't very good. We've given some nice compliments to Dejan Stankovic and his sort of efforts to get something more from that team, but they aren't. And even before the sending off, Roma were definitely on top. So the only question is, would they have found the goal? I think they would have done, personally. Certainly once they went down to 10 men, Samp did fall apart and Dybala showed off, and El Shaarawy's got a really nice goal at the end of injury time as well. But really nice, I think, just for this team to have. I think you talked about him so much when he wasn't there. Gini Wijnaldum is finally playing those games and scoring goals and being part of the team. It's obviously a really positive step for them.
Spinazzola, non c'è spazio, Matic la mette lui, Wijnaldum! L'inserimento di Gini Wijnaldum, altro gol di testa della Roma, 1-0.
Yeah, because I always think of Roma as being such a defensive side that it's nice to have a midfielder that can also produce something in attack, and he is definitely that guy. Roma, I got accused when I said that I thought Lazio were a better team head-to-head, but they did win the derby. Lazio, Simon is now glaring at me. I honestly don't know. I guess I take it all back to that wonderful game that they produced against Napoli that makes me think Lazio are capable of a lot. But obviously they don't always show that, but they did show some of that against Monza. Not that they were really very much challenged. 2-0 victory, which makes Milinkovic-Savic their highest scoring foreigner to Lazio. So congratulations to him.
It's a great free kick. Inevitably, because Milinkovic-Savic was a great free kick.
Va Milinkovic. Su punizione! Che genialata di Milinkovic-Savic, la risposta dopo un periodo abbastanza negativo a livello di prestazioni è questa, con un destro imprendibile.
Well, Monza is an interesting team because, they're a side that we give a lot of compliments to, but in this matchup, it just looked like they just didn't really understand where they were. And actually, when you look at their stats in January, I believe, let me have a look at this because they've played 14 matches in January and they've won only 4. So have we just hyped them up too much? Yeah, 14 games, only 4 wins.
I think Monza are done. I think they're fine because they're not going to get relegated, but I think the rest of the season, we're going to see very little out of them.
Really?
I think, yeah.
Okay.
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'll get proved wrong. It reeks of, I don't know if I'm just thinking this because it's Berlusconi and Galliani, and so that feels like a blast from the past, but it reeks of that, 90s mid-table Italian side that as soon as they're safe from relegation is just right, feet up, we're done. I feel like that was a real thing that was that prominent in the league for a while. And I think Monza on 34 points, they're almost certainly not going down just because his bottom 3 are dreadful. So I think we're going to see, and they're not going to take any points the rest of the way, but I don't think you're going to get good performances from them against top teams. Prove me wrong, Monza. Tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah, Palladino should prove you wrong because, if he wants to become the next big thing, then, dude, you got to show us the medal. But other than that, Atalanta returned to winning games as well. So it's exciting to see what's going to happen at the very top. Our producer is trying to notify us that Bernardeschi scored directly from a corner for Toronto.
I did hear you. I didn't know that.
Bernardeschi, and it's a goal! Well, the wind is absolutely howling into the visitors' goal here, and Federico Bernardeschi, who just cannot stop scoring.
Isn't that something? There's a lot. It's so funny because if you actually follow the account, I don't know, but for me, the stuff that comes up on the account, maybe it's not all of it, but it's like him playing pranks. So I'm glad that he's also scoring goals. Nice to see Bernardeschi still scoring the goals. Obviously, Coppa Italia games. We've got Cremonese versus Fiorentina on Wednesday, and of course the Derby d'Italia on Tuesday night. I wonder whether Rabiot's back to playing basketball for this match or not. Should be interesting, and expect some voice notes from that. Over to you, Nicky.
Yep, voice notes come from us. I think I'll have one right before I head off to Italy, and I'll keep you posted once I get to Italy. But for now, that's a big thank you from us for listening. Hope you enjoyed this free episode. We will be back with those voice notes and then again with the main podcast at the start of next week. Enjoy your weeks, everyone, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Probably shouldn't have done a thing against Gazzetta on a free episode that they can actually hear.
Gaston Ramirez fires off the four-man wall. Berezhinski, backheel! Oh my goodness! Quagliarella with a moment of magic! Sampdoria by 3!
What else can you do but bow down to this world-class football from Sampdoria? At home, they truly are a different animal altogether. And Quagliarella, coming off his best ever season as a pro, he just keeps getting better with age. This is really something out of the top drawer. We were talking about it, Steve. Mr. Dream Goal, he's given that nickname for a reason. It seems like he's got no space, but from this position, Koulibaly thinks that he has the angle covered. He did not expect this. This is one of the best goals that you'll see all season long. And it comes from none other than the man who makes this seem routine. This is normal for Quagliarella. Go back and look at all his goals. It happens for him time and time again.
Sports Social Podcast Network.
When I was diagnosed with cancer, it felt like my whole world came tumbling down.
Patient Advocate Foundation is here for you, providing free one-on-one practical support to patients with a cancer diagnosis. Call us at 800-532-5274. Patient Advocate Foundation can assist in navigating disability benefits and health insurance options. PAF also helps in accessing vital services, medications, and financial resources for both medical and household expenses. Visit patientadvocate.org or call 800-532-5274.